Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice Pacers. I want to welcome on very special guest, Tyler Smith of IndieSportsLegends.com and also as well of Journal Review Sports, covers the Pacers and Indiana. Tyler, welcome onto the show, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Tyler, it's definitely been an interesting start to the season for the Indiana Pacers. I'm sure not exactly where they'd like to be right now with a 4-5 record, and not a great performance again last night for Indiana. What has kind of been your overall impressions of the Pacers so far, through the first part of this season?
Yeah, it's been really similar to last year in that they seem to get up for these big games. They've already beat Boston, Dallas. They beat New York on Sunday. And then they turn around and have a couple days off and lose to an Orlando team who's playing on a back-to-back without their best player. Now, granted, Orlando, has been amazing at home regardless, but still, you just kind of wonder the motivation of this team to not get up for these other games that are not the kind of marquee matchups. Also, they say all the right things. Like Coach Rick Carlisle is constantly talking about how tough the NBA is and how you got to bring it every night, and the guys all talk about that as well. So you just wonder. It's easier said than done, and it's the NBA, so every team has good players. You're going to have some tough losses here and there, but you just wonder why it hasn't clicked yet with this group to get up for games on a nightly basis. And fans are now just kind of looking more forward to the marquee matchups because they think they'll be up for those games and have a good chance to win, and they kind of get nervous at some of the other ones. So, maybe it bodes well for this weekend with the NBA Cup starting in Miami for a couple games, but you could see them winning those games and then losing their next one, shortly after that. So hard to say what's going on. The good news is it's early and it is a talented group, so it's a long season.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, we know Indiana went very all in last year, trading for Pascal Siakam, bringing back a lot of their own guys. So, I guess I'm kind of like thinking, like, obviously, you said it hasn't clicked yet, and this has been a trend even back to last year. So, obviously, there's probably a lot of different factors into that. But if you had to kind of point to one, what do you think has kind of been, in your opinion, and I guess we'll have to see how the season continues, but what has been the biggest reason or the contributing factor into why the Pacers continue to be so inconsistent from a weekend and day in and game out type of thing? Because, like you said, it's like they almost play up to competition, but then they also play down to their competition. So, what do you think has been some of the biggest issues for Indiana, this year and even stemming back even to last year as well?
Yeah, I wish I knew as far as, again, the motivation side of it, but I think last year the thing that was consistent always was the offense, and this year, right now, it's kind of alarming to see they're 14th in the NBA in points per game. That's not going to last. They'll obviously do better than that, but it's typically it was the defense that was contributing to the inconsistency, but right now it is both sides of the ball at different times. They also, they have all this depth, which is a good thing, where guys can pick up other guys on different nights. But right now, it's some of their star players with their inconsistency there. Obviously, Halliburton being inconsistent. Miles Turner has been not as strong as last year to this point. You've got the emergence of Mathurin, but you're also trying to make that fit. How does that fit exactly with how they finished last year? Now you're missing some key players, Nesmith and Nembhard, and then you add Mathurin. So even though most of the team is back, there's still a little bit of trying to figure out continuity and trying to figure out how they want to play exactly. So that's a factor. And another thing fans have to remember is you look at the Eastern Conference and there's two teams at the top, and then everyone else is mid or worse, and the Pacers have fit into that. So it's really an entire conference trying to find their identity this early in the season. Probably won't make a lot of fans, too comfortable because the Pacers are one of those that they're searching for it. But at least you have that as a lot of teams are trying to figure out, and it's only 9 games in. So, but a lot of factors. The offense I know will improve. The defense has been decent at times. Fourth quarter in Orlando was just atrocious all around. So they gotta clean that up. But they need more consistent play from Halliburton and Turner for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of been odd to see them both just take this noticeable drop this year. But you mentioned the depth, which I think is something you definitely have to talk about as well. Knowing the depth that the Pacers have, and like you said, obviously a couple guys out right now for Indiana for the next couple weeks at least. Are there any sort of like minute rotations or something that like maybe if you're sitting there as Rick Carlisle, you potentially consider adding because we've seen like guys like Jarris Walker, Ben Shepherd as well. Some of those guys get some more extended minutes. Would that be something that you would consider if you're Rick Carlisle, maybe starting to, figure that out when it comes to those minutes? And mentioned Benedict Mathurin doing what he's been doing. Do you think there's any sort of rotation that if you're Rick Carlisle, you at least consider, considering it hasn't clicked so far?
I think so. And one thing I've enjoyed about this coaching staff is they are very honest about saying all things, everything's on the table, and every single day, they're looking at all possibilities. Doesn't mean they always make the changes that a fan or media person would be like, I would maybe do this instead. But I do think that they do consider everything. So with a bit of a weaker start and some guys out, I think it is truly a game by game basis. A few games ago when Walker was having a great night, he obviously played more and got more run. Certain matchups they want to play smaller. Right now they can't really play too big with only one true center on the roster. But yeah, I think it's worth considering, and I think especially if a guy is doing well, I would maybe not even look so much at the next matchup. I would just say if he's hot, let's put him in and extend those minutes and see if you can catch a little lightning in a bottle, little run of a week or two of him playing well.
Mm. Yeah, you mentioned just having one really true center on the roster right now. I know there's been some rumblings about the Pacers potentially adding someone in there. Is there a guy for you specifically that you kind of look at and you say, I think this would be a great addition, considering what the Pacers have really not done well with a guy that would maybe add so much value on the bench? Is there somebody out there that you think would make sense for Indiana, kind of looking to add at some point?
Well, I haven't looked too much as far as the salary issues and what they can or can't do, but I do think I understand why they're being a little patient with it, because as long as Turner is healthy and playing, you can kind of get by for a little bit. You don't want to rush and make the wrong move for a guy that's just kind of filling space. They've got enough guys that they can play small. Obviously, if Turner goes down, that's a different story, but I see why they're being a little patient. A lot of fans want to ask about Okafor and see if if he plays well with the Mad Ants, would he get a contract? And that's possible. But I think this is an opportunity that they may have to go out at some point this season and get another veteran leader, somebody with toughness, somebody that can, whether they're protecting the paint or just being a strong rebounder or whatever it is. So I'm not. I haven't looked too much into it. I saw somebody float the idea of a guy that was, kind of in the midst of their playoff run last year, like a Bobby Portis type. Some fans would say no chance, but I mean, like maybe if it's not him, but a player like that. And again, if Milwaukee continues to fall off and they make some moves, but don't even know if that's even remotely possible. But somebody that's a veteran presence that can bring some experience and toughness to the team, rather than just finding a guy that is a body and fill some minutes. So hopefully, ideally they're able to find that fairly soon. But you can see why it'd be difficult for teams this early in the season to deal a solid veteran player. So they're not easy to find.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tyler, I really appreciate you coming on. I have one last thing I want to kind of float your way. I'm kind of curious about this looking forward. Obviously, you said it's still very early in the season for Indiana. And obviously some players that, a lot of people coming into the season would consider some of your top players have not lived up to that yet, have really struggled so far. So moving forward, what are some of the things that you need to see for Indiana to start getting on the right track, to kind of separate themselves from the pack in the East, and kind of maybe start to get into that conversation with some of the top teams in this conference? What are the things that you need to see Indiana do in order to get to that point where we're starting to talk about Indiana as one of those top teams and not just a part of the pack?
Well, one of the things I think is already underway, which would be the emergence of Benedict Mathurin, which I've said, basically all year that I think it was a blessing in disguise last year when he went down. He was able to step back and watch and be coached as far as like, this is how we play. And when you come back, you need to play more of this style, like bring obviously your talents, but play our way. And I feel like he's been doing that, and he's been balling lately. And I feel like if that continues, if he finds consistency, the Pacers will eventually get to a place where they can be considered true contenders in the East. And it's very difficult even for them to get back to the point of last year because, let's say even they do well and they're the number 3 seed, they would have to play that second round series against likely Cleveland or somebody, that good as the 2 seed. So even that, winning 2 series is really hard. But I feel like if Mathurin continues to be this guy and can be consistent with it, they're going to be in that conversation because they needed that one more piece to do it. Consistency from Halliburton and Turner, which I think they'll find. I really don't, unless there's health issues that linger. I don't really have much concern for Tyrese Halliburton. That guy's a all-NBA level player, and it's been frustrating for fans with the money that he makes, but I don't have concern for him unless he's hurt. But yeah, I think again, defense has shown some strides. Offense will pick it up. I just want to see them go out and bury a bad team once in a while, like go into a game, especially on the road, game that you should win, and just, pedal to the metal, get it done, and have that happen more often than not. Because if they can do that, then they can get a higher seed and, obviously make some noise from that point. So Mathurin continuing to play this well, other guys getting healthy, getting consistent, and stepping on the throats of some bad teams once in a while, and they can maybe be in the conversation at that point.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, really appreciate your time. Before I let you go, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you, find your work, everything that you do, covering, multiple teams here, and especially the Pacers. Where can they find you?
Yeah, my Twitter account is TylerSmith_ISL, and IndySportsLegends.com is most of my work. Journal Review out of Crawfordsville, and some other outlets, but those are the main spots.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you, Tyler. Hopefully the Pacers get it figured out here. But yeah, man, I really appreciate your time, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.